Alrighty, so thank you guys for your patience. I'm excited to introduce you to our company, to me as the face for you guys, and then to Stone, the wonderful world of Stone. Oh, there's Dave. He's walking in. So my name is derin.x, and our company is ANS Mermer. We're a family-run business. My dad started this 15, 16 years ago, and been in it for quite some time. So I'm excited to introduce you guys to this stuff. So before I jump into like the nitty-gritty, like the questions that probably all of us are here for, in preparing this presentation, I thought of a little story I want to tell you to kind of like set the scene of why natural stone is important and why it's important to me, why it can be important to you and your customers to make it easier to sell. So like I said, my family, my dad's Turkish. My mom, when she was just out of high school, she lived in Turkey for about a year and lived with the family there. And so as kids, me and my brother would go to Turkey. They'd take us every summer. Even before I knew how to like talk or walk, they would just fly us over. And we grew up there, you know, and our summer times we would spend with our grandparents, our families. And as I grew up, when I was around probably 9, 10 years old, I remember a distinct memory of walking the beaches of Turkey. And some of the beaches, at least the ones that we were exposed to when we were young, weren't the type of beach that was sandy. It was a pebbly beach. It was a rocky beach. And maybe this is just me, but maybe this is some innate desire for humans to touch stone, to pick up pebbles, to find and sort the ones that they like, to collect things from the world. And I did the same thing. I would walk these beaches with my mom. I would dive into the ocean or the sea and find the right stone. I would do this for hours. Every year, I would collect. By the end of the year, I'd have a bag of pebbles that were my pebbles. And unfortunately, you know, as a kid traveling abroad in a plane, you can't just bring those home. It's too heavy. It's too much weight. So my mom would say, you can only bring a couple home. Pick a few that you like, bring them, keep them. And so I choose, with like a difficult choice, I'd make a choice like which ones I wanted to bring home. And then a year would go by. We'd go back to Turkey. I'd go to my collection that was still there next to the beach. I'd sift through maybe the colors that I didn't like as much. I'd find new textures, new colors, new pebbles that summer, and the cycle would repeat itself. I'd have to leave my collection at home. And I remember distinctly, like my parents, my mom especially, she would have a completely different taste than me. I'd pick up the small ones that had some texture, but she would go for something more akin to a pebble that you could hold in your hand. So even early on, I understood the different tastes people have for what they think is aesthetic. And it wasn't until this trip, actually, I just went on a honeymoon with my wife. Thank God. Yeah, thank you so much. We went to Turkey for 3 weeks, and I was walking the same beaches that I walked as a kid. And I remember picking up a handful of pebbles just because, you know, that's what I do. It sounds weird, but I touch rocks. I touch stones. It's like tactile for me. It's something that I'm interested in. So I pick up this handful of pebbles, and this time around, you know, I looked at this handful of rocks, and I noticed something different. I had names for the stones that I was holding. I'd pick this red piece, similar to this color here, and I looked at it and I thought, oh, this stone, this name of the stone is Eliza Vishne in Turkish. It's like a cherry. It's called the cherry stone. And then I'm like, okay, picked up another one. This is Afyon honey. I know the name of this rock. And I finally went to the handful of stones that I had grabbed. I picked one out, and I'm like, my goodness, this rock, this stone that I'm holding is Afyon blue. I bring this stone in from Turkey all the way, and I sell the same stone to the Arizona market. And it wasn't until I was preparing this presentation that I realized something like grand, at least for me, in that somehow, way, shape, or form, I'm living out a childhood dream of taking the pebbles from the beach in Turkey that I loved as a child, and I get to share them with you. I get to share them, hopefully you can share them as well with those people that come in. And that's kind of my duty today, is to kind of invite you in that journey of sharing pebbles with people and helping them find the right stone. Even though we only have 6 that we're stocking, I'm sure with care and active listening that maybe you'll also be able to share some of the nuances and intricacies of this world. So with that being said, I'm going to get right into the nitty-gritty, and then at the end of the presentation, if you guys have any remaining questions, anything that's like, okay, I didn't answer it or I need more clarification for it, then there'll be a time at the end for kind of a question and answer. Okay, so why natural stone? Natural stone is a niche industry. It's not the biggest, but the benefits of natural stone products, in my mind, come down to 4 main categories. The first category is sustainability and eco-friendliness. Contrary to popular belief, quarrying materials, it's not a renewable resource, but it's as sustainable as we can get in the marketplace that we exist in. There's little to no processing or additional additives to these products, and when the materials have gone through their life cycle, depending on if it's 2 years or 10 years or 100 years, when those materials are disposed of and re-added back into nature, they decompose and they become pebbles and sand, and they can just go right back into the earth. There's no environmental harm outside of the responsibility of the quarry owner to make sure that the space that they have done is taken care of. So sustainability, as it becomes a bigger and bigger trend in the marketplace, is a great selling point with the natural stone products. For example, this caught me off guard. I didn't realize this until this past year, but the manufacturing impacts of natural stone versus porcelain is this. We have the stone that's quarried from the mountain. It's transported to a factory or a producer. Sometimes they're even on the same location. And then those materials are cut with metal and water. That's it. Many of these quarries are actively increasing their recyclability of that water, so we're up to like 90, 95% recyclability. Some of them are completely closed loop. And compared to porcelain, which is probably a growing competitor to natural stone products, we have the same minerals, but clay, sand, there's feldspar and other minerals from different locations are mined, quarried just like stone. They're transported separately to the manufacturing plant. And then there's additives. There's inks, glazes, other additives to form that piece of porcelain in the production process. And they're combined, given pressure and dried. Then there's a print that goes on top of that porcelain. And from there, it's shipped from a different place in the world to us and to your consumers. So there's 3 times as much production and hands that are touching it on top of the additives and chemicals that are in it. So when you're talking to your customers, one of the key selling points that we have to continue to educate our customers is the sustainability factor. And I'll get into a second part of this in a little bit, but that's a secret, I guess, that hasn't been talked about a lot. The second one that natural stone is known for is the durability and repairability of the material. So natural stone products last a long time. We've seen this in Roman Colosseums, the Ephesian courts, Turkish buildings and monuments that are made all throughout Turkey have lasted hundreds of years. The stone lasts a long time. On top of which, when the stone is damaged, whether it just gets dirty over use, or there's a scratch or a chip or a stain of those products, it can be repaired. So there's sealing processes, there's cleaning processes that essentially skim the top layer of minerals on the stone, and then we can reapply a cleaning surface or an agent to bring out the original color. The most non-invasive form of that cleaning process is power washing. Power washing is simple. It draws all the dirts out. If there is a stain, like I said, or some damage to the stone, then fabricators can come in, or cleaning people can come in and repair that piece, and just that piece. With porcelain or other man-made products, you have to repair the entire piece completely. You can't just repair that spot. And so the repairability is a factor that's important. On top of which, some of these materials are kind of interchangeable, and so we have the opportunity to replace old materials with materials that look similar to those products. With porcelain, you're working with dye lots, and a lot of times they're consistent with the dye lot, but they're noticeably shade different. With natural stone, because of the variation in the product, it's more forgiving for repairability. The third one is thermal and physical properties. That's probably a really key selling point, at least here in Arizona. So the physical, like the durability of the product, the density of the stone, the fact that the stone is porous and absorbs water and heat, allows for the products to exist in the marketplace and compete against man-made products. Primarily, the key selling point here is heat. So when people are walking out on their patios and their pools, travertine especially, limestone especially, but natural stone in general, will be less hot than a porcelain, a man-made concrete paver, or other products. So that's a huge selling point in the Arizona market, is the heat and the physical properties of the stone. And we'll get into a little bit more of the details, but the quote-unquote imperfections of the stone, the porosity, they add texture, they add uniqueness, and they add slip resistance or friction. So we'll get into that in a little bit, but these quote-unquote imperfections are actually a benefit to the stone. And finally, probably the most well-known reason why natural stone is a front-runner in product offerings is the fact that it's unique and natural. One of the things that I've come to like adopt is this certified organic marketing effort with stone, because there's no processing to it. The people that are trending towards clean eating, clean clothes, clean drinking, natural stone is a clean product. It's an organic product. It's a natural product. On top of which, because of its natural characteristics, there is no one piece that's the same. And sure, maybe they look the same. Maybe when they're laid out, they have a light backyard. They have a Aegean gray or a Fiji sand backyard. But individually, truly, these are unique pieces. You can print, and we've seen these waterline tiles. They've printed on them, and there'll be repeats. There's this artificiality to it that just doesn't exist. Something that, as a natural stone expert myself, you'll find me anytime I come to the shop to update these, or anytime I see stone, you'll find me touching the rock, having a tactile, and I'll do a little knock to hear the sound of the stone. Just a good way to understand whether a product is real or not. It's kind of like a unconscious thing, and I've gotten used to noticing those differences. The way I like to describe that is it's like wearing an organic cotton shirt, or wearing a shirt with Rylon or spandex in it. Even though it's not immediately noticeable, you can tell that there's something synthetic in it. Stone is the same way. So when people are walking on it with their bare feet, or they're touching it with their hands, they're touching natural product. And I think it's an unspoken beauty of the stone. So, Turkish natural stone. We bring in Turkish natural stone, but one product is Mexican. There's nothing I'm against other stones in the world. Brazil brings these beautiful, beautiful slabs. They're well known for their slab industry. China imports and quarries stones, and they produce these amazing mosaics. That's what they're known for. Italy. Italy is a well-known brand of stone in the Calcutta marbles, the white marbles. Turkey is a, how do I say, an undervalued, I think an underdog when it comes to stone. People don't know as much about Turkish stone as maybe I think they should. Of course, I'm biased. I'm completely biased on Turkish natural stone. I have affinity towards it. It's the little child in me that wants to share that. That being said, there are beautiful stones all over the world. It just so happens that our products come from Turkey, and there are some key benefits and reasons why I think it's important to know a little bit more about Turkish stone. So Turkey is the home of over 120 unique stone types, and each one of those stone types has 3 or 4 different variations that come from it. So there's a selection of materials, and so you have around 600, 700 variations of stone that can come from Turkey. We don't bring in 600 stones. We bring in about 30 on a good day. And for you guys, all you really need to worry about is 6. But in terms of the variation, the uniqueness that comes from Turkey, it's one of the highest level of natural stone variations in the world. And funnily enough, a lot of international brands will import Turkish stones and process them in their countries and then sell them as Italian or Chinese or Spanish. It's unfortunate that we do this. Like, we have this product here, for example. It's one of my favorites. It's a deep cherry. It's a Eliza Vishne that I was telling you about. This product is branded in the marketplace as Rosso Levanto, which is Italian. It's an Italian name. It's unfortunate, though, because it's a Turkish stone. There's several examples of that we see in the marketplace. But for us, for today, we'll get into our curated collection. I just want to show you the depth of Turkey. And this is an example of the history of the natural stone that exists in Turkey. This is the Topkapı Palace in Turkey. Has anybody been to Turkey by chance? Here? Okay, everybody, next year, I'm going to take you guys. We'll do a tour. We'll walk quarries. We'll walk this palace. This palace, exactly. Yeah, you can continue buying. I can afford to take you guys. This palace is covered, the pillars, the columns, the flooring, and the walls, all covered in natural stone. And you'll notice that the ground itself is covered in a white blue marble. That marble that's in Topkapı and has been in Topkapı for hundreds of years is a product that's available to you and to your customers. So there's deep history in Turkish natural stone. This is Ephesus. I had the opportunity of traveling Ephesus this year, and again, with this newfound knowledge of the stone, this place is covered. The walls, the columns, the floor, and again, you'll notice that's the same blue-white marble. It's called white cloud, or otherwise known as Muğla white. This thing is just riddled with these types of stones. The columns are all different, they're unique. There was no designer back in the day that was like, okay, I want to make everything uniform and perfect. No, they just brought in, that's a great piece of stone. I'm going to put it in my backyard or on the column. And then the next piece of stone is green. The next one's black. The next one's white. Like, I don't know who was the color coordinator back in the day, but it was just riddled with natural stone all over the place. So there's deep history, I think, as a form of communication to your customers. Outside of the features and benefits, there's a story that's important to tell, and I think will increase the likelihood of people moving with a natural product. Okay, stone applications. Luckily for you guys, you only need to worry about a few. There are a lot of different stone applications in the world. Countertops is probably the most well-known. There's also backsplashes, mosaics, interior tiles. The stone can be used for wall claddings and commercial projects, and people nowadays are using technology to carve 3D intricate designs into the stone that's not available to a product like porcelain. You can get that richness and the depth in the stone. For you guys though, like I said, there are 3, maybe 4 primary applications to worry about. The first is pavers. So our hardscape materials, this is the kind of like the bread and butter of what we do. Pretty standard. We bring in 1 1/4 and 2-inch pieces for pavers. And second to that is copings. So again, the moolah white or that white cloud material. The copings are a common use case for the backyards and patios. We can talk about profile finishes in a little bit. And then thirdly, Amber and I were talking about this earlier, is the ledger panels or stack stone. So adding height to your projects on the walls, whether it's a fire pit, a waterfall feature, column. We have the capacity to do ledger stone products. You can also use tiles. So we bring in set number of tiles in smaller sizes that can be used as remodels underneath the coping, or even as a backsplash for barbecue areas as well. So the three main applications that we have for you guys: pavers, copings, ledger panels. Stone types. Similar to the amount of variations of stone that exist, there are over 50 different types of stones, and I think 20 that come from Turkey. Things like andesite. Granite is a popular stone that people know about. It's not trending right now. Basalt, onyx materials. These are stones that come from Turkey and we can source, but the main three that we bring in as hardscape materials are travertine, limestone, and marble. Now, before I get into like the nitty-gritty of the travertine, the difference between the three, I want to address a misnomer. So in the marketplace, travertine is used as natural stone. So people will come to you and say, I want travertine. What they're really saying is that they want natural stone. It's a synonym that's been baked in to the market. So when people do come in, you want to educate them on the differences between travertine, limestone, and marble, because travertine is a natural stone. It is not natural stone. It's kind of like a rectangle. A square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square. It's very similar. And it's an important distinction for you guys, because in the past, and I continue to hear it today, there are vendors in the market that will sell a limestone, a higher maintenance product, a product that you need more education about, as a travertine. That's less maintenance. And so to the consumer, it's travertine, it's durable, it's no maintenance needed. But in fact, it's a limestone. And so this is a very important thing to get across. So that being said, travertine is the most common natural stone that we have, and it's the most common natural stone that we bring in as hardscape materials. Trends are changing, and we'll get into that in a second, but the general benefits of the pros of travertine is that it's the most common, so it's readily available. Your consumers, if they buy from you a travertine piece, and for some ungodly reason, we're not here to provide them additional material, then they are safe, generally speaking, sourcing travertine from another vendor. Maybe there's a slight variation difference, but overall, it's a kind of the middle ground, safe to work with. It has the most amount of color options available because of the different tonalities within the same block. And with marble, marble is a lot more uniform typically, so travertine has a greater color variation set. The durability of the travertine is I compare it to your everyday product. It's durable, it's pretty heat resistant, it's going to be a good cost point for the consumer, low maintenance, and so that's kind of the starting point. Pretty safe to sell travertine without having to think too much about what additional services the consumer might need. It's cooler than concrete, marble, or other man-made products. That's like I was talking about the thermal properties earlier. And it's, again, not as expensive, so a good starting point. The natural pores, the porosity of the material, is frequently seen as a negative. I think the trends are super clean, super modern, no imperfections. The downside to that is that it reduces the character that exists in natural stone. And so a selling point, at least for me, with our premium grade products, the natural pores are small enough to create points of friction and not big enough where your toe's going to get stuck or somebody's going to get hurt because of the hole or cut or anything. They'll add points of friction, which is a feature, not a negative point. The cons, of course, it's hotter than other products on the market, especially limestone right now. It's not as trendy in terms of coloration, more tans and beiges, and we'll see that in a second. The light colors across the board can stain or show dirt more. It's just a logical thing. If something's white and dust is black, the dust is going to show. So the lighter colored travertines can show dust, but the maintenance is pretty low. Travertine, especially Mexican travertine, is not as dense as Turkish travertine. This is not a dig against Mexican travertine. I'm not saying Mexican travertine has no value. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the physical properties of most Mexican travertines is the fact that they're less dense than Turkish stone. And that's a matter of altitude, typically. Because there's less material in the stone itself, it's more susceptible to erosion. And so Mexican travertine, especially around the pool, will erode quicker than a Turkish travertine. And then you add salt to the pool. Then you don't seal the material. Then you have a quality issue. And so it just compounds the effects of the quality. Turkish travertine, because it's denser, it's not something to worry as much about as the Mexican travertine. Mexican limestone is pretty dope. Honestly, it's pretty cool. They're dense products, but they're typically very expensive. And we'll get into a second why it's not just about the density, it's not just about the stone or the color. There are other factors that make this whole process very important. And the last one, the pores can trap dirt, so dirt will just be in the stone. And the easiest remedy to that is a polymeric sand. Polymeric sand is a non-invasive additive that you add to the stone, you wet it, and it will fill up the pores pretty much to the top. And so you'll still have the slip resistance. It's not going to be a perfectly smooth piece. And it will reduce the amount of dirt that gets in. Because of that, the dirt will fade away quicker. Limestone. Limestone is, right now, probably PTSD with limestone for you guys. The limestone, we'll get into this in a second. I want to be super clear. There's nothing inherently wrong with limestone. It's not a product that is like the devil. It's not something that people should be scared of. You just should be educated on. It's a higher maintenance product. The stone itself, even though it's dense, there's the minerals are closely packed, and there's not typically a lot of pores on the surface of a limestone. It still absorbs a lot of water. And that means that when the water from the ground is piled or water from the top of the stone is on the stone, it'll act as a sponge. It will absorb. All stone does this. Limestone does it the most. Especially the limestones we bring in from Turkey. There are other limestones that exist that are like granite, but the limestones from Turkey are absorbent, more so than travertine. The light colors of limestone compound that. That's trending. It's modern. So there's a pro to that. There's a design choice for consumers to go with a limestone because of the uniformity and the coloration. And they're the most heat resistant because they absorb a lot of water, and they're porous. It's a porous stone. Heat will transfer through the stone. It doesn't. The heat doesn't just stay on the material itself. So it's the least hot of all the products that we bring in. Cons, like I said, high maintenance. They're typically prone to chip, depending on those materials, and they're easier to stain. When materials are super smooth, people want that. People want uniformity. The downside to uniformity is that it's slippery. It's super slippery. If it's so perfect, you run around, you have a little kid running around on a perfect surface, even if there's no water, it'll be slippery. So that's something to consider with limestone. Again, limestone is not something to be afraid of. It's a beautiful stone. It's just high maintenance. It's kind of like a Mercedes or a Lexus or a Benz. Like, it's not something to just throw in the back of your patio and forget it. This is takes some care. Some care tips is on the installation side, and we can talk with installers as well, is installing with mortar sand if it's on the back so it doesn't leach through. The base layer, if the base layer of the sand is that traditional like Sedona red, when that stuff gets wet, those minerals will be absorbed into the stone. White on red, you can see it. So slowly it can leach. If they use white sand, it almost immediately solves that problem because it's not noticeable. It's still happening. The absorption is still happening, but because of the white minerals, it's not as big of an issue. So that's on the installation side, and it can be a conversation later down the road, but this is a solvable problem. Using a moisture barrier, for example, is also an additive to the installation process that will reduce the likelihood of a product staining. And finally,
can you define that?
The moisture barrier.
For everyone? Yeah.
So the moisture barrier is going to be a layer on the bottom of the installation process where it will prevent water from seeping in and up through the ground, so that it's creating a layer of protection for. It's basically adding a filter for the water to prevent a lot of water to travel through, and that because stone is a sponge, less water, less sponginess of that water itself.
Is it like a X thick plastic, or is it more of a screen type material?
There are different options. The downside for some moisture barriers, because it does rain here, the water needs to travel through. It can't stay on the moisture barrier. If it stays on the moisture barrier, all that's happening is that the stone itself is always staying wet. So there's a fine line. That's an installation thing. As salespeople, you don't really need to know too much about that. I just want you to be aware that there is a solution to selling limestone, and one of the solutions or remedies is collaborating with the installation team, period. I mean, and they are experts in that, so they'll help with making sure that the installation is appropriate. Sealing, natural stone sealing is a common term that you've probably heard. Sealing is always recommended, always. It's so simple. When people ask me, do you recommend sealing? Well, you don't have to do it, but if you do it, it's going to protect your stone for longer. The way I understand sealing is like waxing your car. I bought a $30,000 Subaru in 2020. I haven't waxed my car. I don't really think it's that important. Maybe I just don't value a $30,000 car to wax every year for thousands of dollars. But if I bought a $150,000 Lexus, you sure bet I would wax that thing every year. And so you protect it by adding that on a routine maintenance. And it's not permanent, but you know you're going to need to do it. And so with limestone, and typically any natural stone product, if you seal it, you protect it. The sealers that we provide and we have access to are impregnating sealers. So there is such a thing as a surface-based sealer where it just stays on the surface. The downside to that is that it doesn't get down into the stone. And so the rest of the stone is still absorbent. Impregnating sealers get through the entire stone itself, and they lock up a lot of the places where that moisture will go into. On top of which, a lot of the sealers that we work with, they don't change the color of the stone. So if you Google travertine stone sealer, you'll see pictures of before and afters, and it'll look dry and wet. That is an option that consumers have if they want their stones always to look the most vibrant and colorful as possible. They can add a color enhancer or a sealer that retains that color itself. But the sealers that we provide and we've seen are the most benefit are ones that are neutral. They'll impregnate the stone with the sealer, they'll protect the stone, but they don't change the color of the stone so that the consumer, when it does get wet and it changes color naturally, that there's that added surprise or benefit, the novelty of that. That's something we can get into in a little bit. I'll show you an example of one of our products in a following section here. Finally, marble. Marble is the trend right now. Marble is creme de la crop. It's the most expensive stone that you get. I mean, if you think about it, marble was used for countertops and statues and pillars. And now we're chopping it up and we're putting it on our ground. It's not a cheap product, and it shouldn't be. None of these products should be cheap products. But marble is now an option to consumers. It's the most dense stone that we have of the three. That means because it's so dense, it has less likelihood of absorbing the water, which means less staining, less deterioration of the stone, because that water layer is staying at the top. It's not getting into the stone. It's the most durable in the sense that because it has so much product, it will last the longest amount of time through natural erosion or residential use, commercial use. Trending colors, and it's modern. So that's right now cool grays, cool beiges, like monotone, uniform. Marble, the characteristics of marble are typically that of modern, uniform, across the board. There's not a huge level of variation. And if there is variation, it's pretty consistent in the terms of the overall quality of the product. Finally, the pro that is kind of unspoken, and I've recently found, is the fact that these marbles in the past have been honed. Oh, the food's here. Should we bring?
You keep going.
Okay. I got food for everybody, by the way. It's Greek food from our brothers across the sea. We'll have that afterwards. But back to this. One of the main pros of marble right now is the fact that we can finish the stone with what's called a sandblasting finish, or a sandblasted and brushed finish. So that will add texture to the surface of the stone. The texture is friction. Friction means less slippery. It also means, especially with sandblasted products, it's kind of counterintuitive, but sandblasted products don't get as hot. If something's flat, the sun will hit the stone, and it will hit it forever. It's absorbing all of the heat. But you add some ridges and some mountains and valleys, the stone won't penetrate all the way into that product itself, and it will only get the top surface layer hot, so the whole stone doesn't get as hot. It's a weird physical property that we found when we were bringing this material in. So the sandblasting finish actually reduces the overall heat that the stone gets. That is one of the major cons of marble, though. Because it's so dense, as it gets hot, it retains that heat, stays hot, gets the most hot out of the three.
So that's standard, the sandblasting, or that's an added?
That is currently our standard.
Okay.
So in the world of marble, it's not standard. But in the world of hardscapes, what we bring in strictly sandblasted and leathered products for our marble line. Because otherwise, it's a nightmare. It's slippery and it's hot as hell. So all of our marbles that we bring in, but one, are sandblasted and brushed. Some of them are just sandblasted. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and not to be clarified, the difference between sandblasted and leathered, if you could just touch that one
Sure.
more time.
Yeah. So sandblasting is basically when the factory has a big vat of sand and they just shoot it at the stone. A bunch of these little pebbles hit the stone, and it etches the stone, basically. And so there's this physical damage that's happening to the top of the surface, and it just added a bunch of texture, these little like micro craters. When you add a brushed application to a sandblasted product, so basically you'll sandblast it, you shoot a bunch of sand to it, and then you'll brush it with like a wire brush, and that kind of like shaves the top layer of that sandblasted off. And so there's some deeper craters that are still there, but overall it's smoother. When you do brush the stone, the color comes back too. So a sandblasted product most sandblasted products look white because of all the craters that have been made into the stone. They just look white. It's kind of unfortunate because these stones are beautiful and they have tons of color. And so we brush the top so that color comes back, still has some of the texture that is slip resistant, and the combination of a sandblast finish and a brushed finish is what we call a leathered finish. So when you hear leathered in the market, at least in Arizona, that means sandblasted and brushed. It's easier for me to say leathered than it is for me to say sandblasted and brushed. And it's also a lot easier to print it on a tag. So we just call it leathered finish as a definition for that. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Perfect. The cons of marble, like I said earlier, they're the most expensive product that we have. It is an upgrade. They can be slippery, like I said. Because of the density of the stone, when the material is damaged, because those molecules are all tightly bound together, when one goes, several of them go. So it chips, it can chip more, it can be a more prominent chipping than a travertine you might see. And then last, it is the hottest, if it's not leather or sandblasted. Okay, so ANS. We don't bring in 120 colors. We curate our collection based off of the trends that we see in the marketplace, what we have access to, what we have good price points for. So we have, these are some of the colors that we bring in. We have about 30 total collections of colors. We're cutting some out. We're removing some to keep it a little bit simpler. But in general, we have a pretty broad range of color options. You guys stock 6. We have 5 times that amount, so there's potential for extra design options when in communication with me or our team. But for the most part, we want to be backing these products, keep it simple, make it as easy for the consumer as possible. Popular travertines. Light has traditionally and is the most popular color travertine in the world. Turkey is well known for its light color, and it's otherwise known as ivory or medium. That's by far the most popular color in the world. There are variations to that, and so you can kind of see it from here. Light, antique light, comes from the same mountain. Walnut comes from a neighboring quarry of the same mountain. Dark comes from the bottom layer of the same mountain of the light. So same mountain, different layers, different colors. We separate those out, and we get light, antique light, walnut, and dark. Antique light is a product you guys carry. You call it Havasu Sunrise. That product is undervalued. It's an underdog. We have a ton of the material. It's beautiful stone. It's priced right. So sell that. Sell a bunch of that. Because of the combinations like walnut and antique light, some of these we skip, kind of just keep them into little categories. Scabos is not a popular color as much anymore, but it is it's a grandfather product. I mean, this thing, you can see it in the marketplace. It's existed for a long time. Silver was one of the most popular colors for a long time, and now the marble trend is taking it away. But it's still a beautiful stone. Popular limestones we carry. We try not to carry a ton of limestones because of the high maintenance that it has. Perla Blanca is our primary white limestone. We have another new product that I don't have in this presentation called Myra White. Same quarry. One's from the top of the mountain, one's from the bottom of the mountain. The density is a little different. The color's a little different, but generally it's a beautiful white limestone. And you guys have examples of those on the samples over there. Pearl Gray comes from Mexico. It's gray taupe. And then this line here, our Terra line, is brand new. We're getting new shipments of it. It's a limestone, all of which, besides the Pearl Gray, are pre-sealed in Turkey. And I'll get into that in a second. Popular marbles. You are carrying our 3 most popular marbles: Aegean Gray, King Silver, and Royal Cream. You call it Fiji Sand, Oceanside Silver, and Santorini. Those are the 3 most popular. We also have other products like Aqua Blue, the blue stone that I had mentioned earlier, that white marble that's commonly seen in Turkey. We carry all those as well. And on our website, I'll get that in a second, you have access to seeing all these products laid out. Okay, that being said, there's a lot of information, but I want to touch on a key point here. It's not just about the color. The color is great. The stone is stone. It's not going to go anywhere. It's a matter of the craftsperson who takes that stone from the mountain and turns it into something that's worthy to put in the backyard. And so the point is, the factory is the most important piece of this entire equation. The people who are handling the stone and treating the stone make the difference. We have access to quarries in Turkey, factories that we've been working with for over 20 years. And so we have dialed in our quality for quality control. We only bring in the top factories. The reason why is because there will be quality issues. So on the left-hand side, you see a premium A-grade material, what we bring in. We only bring that in, and we pay the price for it. Or you can get a commercial-grade product, a product with more pits, more holes, more problems. Here's the thing, though. A vendor will bring in a commercial-grade product because it's cheap, and then they'll fill it. They'll fill it with clay. So it looks perfect. It looks amazing until 2 years later, the clay erodes quicker than the stone, and you can see the Swiss cheese product that they've installed. So this is a problem. If you're not aware that you're getting commercial-grade products, you're going to be screwed. We only bring in and pay for A-grade materials. On occasion, we'll bring in a commercial-grade product, but for you guys, we don't do that. We stay away from that entirely. Thickness. This is the devil. This is the problem that we had with an unnamed competitor. I won't say it, but this is why the limestone issue became an issue, in my opinion. Yeah, sure, there was staining, sure, there was color issues, but the main reason why we had issues was the thickness. Travertine material that we bring in for pavers is 3 centimeters, 30 millimeters, 1.25 inches. But when we talk about metric, it's a lot easier to understand the problem that can arise in such a small amount. 30 millimeters, if the material goes down to 29 millimeters, and there's a variation of all the way up to 31 or 32 millimeters, that's what you get. That small millimeter of a difference on either end, a plus or minus 1 millimeter tolerance, gets that issue. Our tolerances with the quarries and factories that we use is 0.5 millimeters. So in total, it's 1, not three, a difference of 3. It's a difference of 1 millimeter. Because of that difference, we have uniformity. If ever you have a calibration issue, I need to know. So I can tell my factories to get on their work and do a better job. That is on them, and we want to make sure that you guys are taken care of. That is the most important aspect of this process, is the calibration and squareness. Our factories, top of the line, we're square. We're not like weird rhombus shapes, and we're calibrated. So huge, huge, huge in terms of the overall industry. This is something you guys should always be aware of. Now finally, the sealing process. It's kind of like our thing with the limestones, because we want to offer some level of protection or comfort or peace of mind for you and the consumer. For our limestone, especially the white limestones, we have our factories, we pay our factories extra to take every single paver and dunk it in a sealant. They dunk it in the sealant, they set it to dry, and so every piece is sealed on all 6 sides, not top and bottom, the whole thing, and that adds a lifespan to the stone. That is pre-waxed, let's say. Your stone is come and treated, and so it's a lot less likely to have issues. But again, these are things to communicate to your homeowners. So if it's not worth the headache, then don't sell limestone.
And is that just on limestone, or is that your travertine also?
That's just the limestone products, because those are the products that we've seen the most problems with. You can do it with travertine. The fact of the matter is people are not willing to pay. So price has become one of the main factors for all these decisions, especially right now. So we reduce as many costs as possible. You can always add sealant when needed, and we can help with that process. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Always recommended, but not necessary for travertines or marbles.
So I guess it's more internal, but if it's a travertine and the client did want it sealed,
yes,
and we order it from this company, your company, would you seal it?
We can.
Or our
we would handle So on the state side, we would basically partner you with a travertine cleaning company or a stone cleaning company who can seal the products. Depending on that level, we can offer the homeowner a sealant and they can apply it themselves if they want to save cost. We don't manually do that service, not yet anyway.
Yeah.
So we would partner with some people we've worked with in the past who have cleaned and have extensive knowledge on this particular product. The Perla Blanca and Pearl Gray. They have deep knowledge on how to properly clean it with commercial grade cleaners and sealers. So we would kind of say, hey, that option's available. Here's who we recommend. Here's who we stand by. But we don't do that ourselves. If you requested for a big ass special job, if there's a commercial project that you guys work on and you want to just seal it, then we can bid that out, get the product sealed. So that's an option. But standard stuff, no, we don't pre-seal or do the sealing ourselves. So the question to answer is why ANS? And I'll try to.
Just really quickly, so it won't escape everyone's mind. So don't mix up six-sided sealing from the factory for limestone with topical sealing in the field.
Correct.
By a company. Don't mix those two up, guys. Right?
Correct.
Limestone, six-sided, come from the factory.
From us.
The other is an add-on and it's topical. So
Yeah.
If you're gonna pick six-sided and then they choose travertine, you may have if you make a big deal out of the six-sided sealing on limestone and they choose travertine, you may have an issue for yourself that you just created because now they're gonna say, why aren't you six-siding?
Potentially, yeah.
So just keep that in mind.
Sure, yeah, that's a great point. This white limestone, we are the only supplier in the state of Arizona and Texas that bring this product pre-sealed. Everyone else brings it non-sealed. And that's in my opinion, big problem because this thing sucks up water like a sponge. So when it's installed, it will leach if it's not sealed. It will be a lot less likely to leach when it is sealed because it's six-sided, it's dipped. It's bottom, sides, top. It's basically protected from all sides. If it's just topical, everything from the bottom can still come up. Everything that does get into the sides can still come up. And so our six-sided sealed limestone is the only one available in the market right now. So if they want to go that route, I would highly recommend that they buy ANS limestone and not other companies' limestones because they might say it, probably won't say it, and it's a pain. Like I have a customer right now, he had to pay out of his pocket $7,000 to repair and seal a job of the same type of limestone that he bought from a competitor of mine. And I told him, I said, dude, this is gonna stain. It's gonna be a big problem. The homeowner bought his material from the supplier direct. They didn't care. They saved a couple dollars on the back end. It kicked them in the ass. It was a big problem. And now they're wanting to replace the whole deck with the Royal Cream. So
what's the lifespan of the sealer? Is it an annual reseal or every 2 years?
we would recommend, yeah, so 12 months is good. 18 months is kind of like, probably that's the last moment. 2 years would be like I got lazy last year, I'm gonna do it this year kind of thing. So we do 18 to 24 months on a conservative note. If the people are on top of it, then yeah, annual.
Okay.
And just to give you a general idea, that upgrade to seal it on the back end for the consumer is about $1 a square foot. $1.15 a square foot. So it's comparative. I mean, you put a $100,000 pool in your backyard, $1,000 to protect it every year. It's not, in my opinion, it's not something that I would think twice about. I'd protect the stone.
So when it's resealed once a year, once every 18 months.
That's topical.
It's okay.
That would be topical.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's more exposure on the top. So stuff on bottom, it'll last a little longer. And the impregnating sealers that we work with, especially with our travertine cleaning partner, when they do impregnating sealers, it actually kind of creates a bottom layer of the sealer. So it would basically, he'll seal it to like a halfway point. And so even if the stone leaches up from the bottom, it'll stop at the point in which the sealer got down to the stone. So it does act as a additional bottom layer. It's just not all the way on the bottom. It's in the middle of the piece. That makes sense. Okay. So why ANS? we've been in operation for 15 years. I grew up in this business when I was a little teensy, little baby. My dad started it. Year to date, we've done 3 million square feet. We bring in around, on our low end, like 50 containers a month. On the high end, 100, 120 containers a month. We have 12 employees, 3 of which are staffed in Turkey and are doing active quarries every week. They do rounds. We have one in a region of Turkey that's like talking to kind of like this geography of quarries. The other is in another geography and just does rotations. We're always quality checking and controlling in Turkey. This is not just pictures, this is people on the ground. We operate in 2 continents. We have over 24 quarries and partners. More than half of those people we've done business with over 20 years. Like we've been in constant communication with. So these are like deep relationships. And we technically cover Texas, Nevada, and Arizona. We have market share in some of those states. So we have some ability to expand relatively quickly and far. Services, so basically we've traditionally focused on construction supply companies, but our real focus is you guys, pool companies. Consistent supply of Turkish stone, of stone in general, is probably one of the biggest problems in the industry at the moment, and our intention is to solve that problem. So it makes it easier for you guys to do your job and confident that you won't have any issues, and then also give the consumer a peace of mind that they know where they're getting the material from. So we're trying to keep it as transparent, as open as possible. We procure stone. That's the name of the game. We just constantly bring in products. So we have a huge hand there. Sales and training, I love this stuff. I love doing presentations. If at any time you guys need any questions answered, you can text me. Amber's been texting me. You guys can just ask your questions. We can do product knowledge days. We can do a day with consumers, make it as easy as possible. And then we have the opportunity to do exclusive collections. And so we're working on one right now with you guys, where it's Shasta exclusive. It's just a Shasta 3-piece product that no one else can get. And so you create some competitive moat in the marketplace of God knows how many pool companies in the industry. You create some level of, you can only get it at Shasta. That's a big thing for us. So local presence, we're here, timely. You guys can text us. We are working, for example, with Kim right now, daily communication. I mean, just yesterday she sent us an order. Today we're going to fulfill it. So it's like pretty quick. Ideally, we work off of your guys' stock. That makes our job easier. So we can back you up when you guys commit, but there's options for us to deliver on your behalf and kind of work through those supply chain issues. We're pretty open with our return policy. We've never like really instilled a formal one, but basically if you bring us the product back and it's not cut, there's no signs of installation, I'll take it back and I won't charge you a restocking fee, at least for now. So this is like this return policy. You guys should have some confidence that if there's ever an issue with the consumer, we will solve that problem. We'll exchange it. We'll return it. We'll do what we need to do. And then we have on-site quality control. So if there is an issue on site with a consumer, I can come out, walk the yard with you guys and the homeowner, and evaluate, diagnose, tell you what the problem is, and then we'll solve that issue for that client in person. Sales training, again, like I said. Something to note, and I'm working on this for you guys, if a consumer comes in here and already has a stone that they have in their mind, oh, I saw Da Vinci stone online and I really like Da Vinci, or I saw Rosso Levanto, but it has another name there. Everybody does this. You guys have done it. You guys taken a product of ours and you put your name on it because branding. It's just, hey, I can get Oceanside silver at Shasta, so I'll go there. The fact is, that product is available to other people, so when they come in, you can go on our website, you can type the name out to your best spelling ability, and more likely than not, we'll have it in our database and it'll show up, oh, Tundra Gray. It's King Silver. King Silver is Oceanside silver. And so you'll have the ability to answer, if somebody does come in here with some preconceived ideas or desires, The web app and our website is a really great resource. There's a bunch of patterns on there as well. You have access to our showroom. So if you want us to walk through the 24 other colors with you or your clients, you guys can come down and work with us. We do free samples, sample boards, and displays. Basically, if you ever need any additional design services, we can offer that or create it around your workflow. I know some people like working off of this. I know some people like working out of their truck or their car. So we can create materials for you and your company. And finally, our expertise. So like I said, we've been in this market for a long time. We have people on the ground, and they're on site doing extensive quality control of those materials. It's not like some of these companies where a guy will walk in with a briefcase and he's not in Turkey. He's not managing the factories. He's just pushing paper. We have employees in Turkey at all times going over these products. And then this last point, on-site bullnosing is actually for the fabrication shop. Fabrication shop is a new feature that we're adding to our services. Basically, we found that the trend is straight edge. So consumers don't always want a bullnose. Sometimes they do. So we're bringing in straight edge pieces. If the customer wants a bullnose or some other type of profile, then we can do it on site. We have a machine to run through straight pieces. It's pretty easy. And then we also have the capacity to create full-blown custom projects, so radius copings, weird sizes and dimensions, and I want a bullnose on that side, I want a split face on this side, I want a weird edge on that side, cut in a circle. We can make some workarounds if the material's available, so we have some customization available to you guys as sales people and designers.
Quick question on that. In the past, we've had people bullnose on site.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like factory bullnose.
No.
And customers hate
Hate it.
Want us to replace it. So
Yep.
is this perfection on site, like in a factory?
Yeah, so the way it works now is a contractor will have a Makita drill or whatever, and they'll put a bullnose bit on it, and then just and be done with it. It leaves saw marks. They could basically add a bunch of those bits to reduce the grits and get that soft edge. Our machine in the shop is a 4-step process, and so you'll go from a raw cut to a like a 120 grit, 80 grit kind of smooth look. So to answer your question in short, yes, it will come from our factory, our shop, more finished than the contractors. The factories in Turkey have like big ass machines. These are like 6-head machines, so they're like dialed in and they're moving thousands of square feet through those machines all the time. So there's a tiny bit of difference, but the consumer won't know, and it's as perfect as we can get it. So, and we have examples of that. We've done it for you guys already. We can always adjust it too. If the customer wants it less finished, if they want it more finished, we can basically add that level of customization on hand touch to those products. And it's pretty competitive and cheap, so I can give you guys pricing on that. We can also cut pieces. So if a consumer wants, or a homeowner wants, like a weird spa, if they want like a 16 by 18 piece, we have been chopping pieces up for jobs right now. So they don't want the standard size, we'll chop it up and make it exactly what they want. Again, that adds a little bit more of a customization. Basically, you don't need to say no, we can do it. Supply chain overview. Basically, you put an order in. This is more for Dave and the back-end team. You put an order in 2 to 3 weeks to produce the product in Turkey. Basically, they take a block, they chop it up, they put it in a crate, and then they ship it. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks to ship. It either comes into Houston or LA. It'll go through customs, and it'll stay around the port areas, moving through the system for about a week to 2 weeks, and then we pick it up. We bring it in from Houston, and then we land it in our yard. Nowadays, again, my main focus is we'll ship it straight to you guys, and every ancillary product that we have, you pull off of us. So we have plans for a stocking plan here, making sure you guys have consistent supply. So those trucks are going to go straight to you guys. But we can, like I said, schedule local deliveries from our yard to wherever. Stock management. This is the bane of our existence. We have to stock a lot of products, make sure everybody's supplied. And our priority, let me just be real, is you guys. We are doing everything in our power to make sure that you are supplied at all times. And so we have products on the water that you have yet to purchase that we have put your name on, and we're holding them for you guys. So we are backing as much as we can fiscally do for you and your company. And our goal is to have containers of at least these products stocked in our yard, as long as your guys are stocking as well. So that typically looks around 2 to 3 containers per major SKU, again, primarily the 3-piece. And we have a lot of open materials, but that's not something that you guys need to worry about too much. Size offerings, 3-piece pattern is the bread and butter. The 3-piece pattern that we bring in comes in individual crates. The reason why we do that is because if a person wants 12 by 12 copings, or they want to put it on their barbecue, or they want to do some weird thing, put it on a column, you can pull it off the pallet. So you guys are bringing in individual crates. We can do kits to make it easier for the field, but essentially you have 6 by 6, 6 by 12, 12 by 12, and then the combo kit. 12 by 24 is the next most popular size, and that's basically used for copings or running bond patterns. 16 by 24 are also trending for big jobs. And there's another pattern I'll show you in a second called French pattern, but that one I'll show you in a minute. We bring in 2 major thicknesses, 3 cm, 1.25 inches, and 5 cm, which is 2 inches. So for the people who want premium look on the pool patio, a 2-inch piece is actually super nice because it makes it look like the whole deck. It's like this thick stone. And it's just it's way nicer material. And then, like I said earlier, we can bring in waterline tile for remodels. Basically, it covers the cool deck or whatever's underneath, and it acts as a complementary piece to the coping.
Oh, so like a fascia piece, so you're...
Yeah, exactly.
You
You do a remodel, you have a fascia piece right here to cover, and then you have your waterline tile. So those, basically all of the colors, we bring in 4x4 and 6x6 as that fascia piece, depending on how big the cool deck is.
How thick is that piece?
That piece is about a 1/2 inch.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah, it's thin. It's like a waterline tile piece. It's pretty thin.
Okay.
So we have those. We hold those. If you need to hold them in stock, honestly, 1 crate goes a long way. No brainer in my opinion. So we have that. So patterns, just a quick overview. 3-piece pattern. This is kind of the layout. There are a lot of 3-piece patterns in the market. So installers will kind of just do their thing. Ideally, the way we've been ordering is to this ratio. And I can send all these patterns to you guys, but it's to this ratio. When the installers install it at a different ratio, we run into inventory issues. So the reason why we bring it in this way is cheaper. There's smaller pieces are more available, so we can have, we just use a 6x12 as a heavy example of that. And basically that picture there is our 3-piece pattern. When it's installed, the customer doesn't really notice a difference, but for inventory purposes, it's quite important. Bread and butter pattern here. The next, this is an example of that. It's a pretty large project, excuse me. But you notice on bigger projects, a lot of movement, a lot of little squares. So anything that's like bigger, we recommend bigger pieces, but that's kind of what that looks like.
Is on like the bigger pieces for bigger projects, are they the same amount per square foot?
No. So in terms of cost, you mean?
Yes.
No. The material is more expensive. It's more expensive because a higher quality piece is needed to have a bigger piece. Yeah, so that's kind of why, and also there's more material. The French pattern is known as the 4-piece pattern or the Versailles pattern. That is the Turkey's most well-known pattern in the world. I mean, there's an ungodly amount of French pattern that exists in the market and that is sitting in inventory. Arizona, for some reason, and my dad claims it's his reason, it's his fault. Arizona is 3-piece heavy. Smaller backyards, smaller pieces, it works better. The trend though, there's a lot of big backyards that are being built. so bigger pieces are available. And that's 4-piece French pattern. This one comes in a kit. You have to buy it in a kit. You have to sell it in 8 square foot increments. And again, we can send these details. They're also available to you online. And that kind of looks like that. Here's an example of a 4-piece on the ground. So like I said, installed, customers really can't tell the difference. My preference is the 4-piece. I think it's just a nicer look. So it's if there's ever a shortage of 3-piece, French pattern is a good alternative. Then finally, the running bond patterns are trending. So rectangles, 12 by 24, 16 by 24s. These are products that we bring in. They're trending. Those are available to you guys, and they're a simple pattern. There are other patterns that exist in the market. So if we have to make a solution for a problem, if we don't have material or the customer doesn't like something, we don't have one size. For example, if there's an excess of 6 by 12s in your yard and you just need to manage that inventory, there are other patterns that exist, like 2-piece patterns with a 12 by 12 and a 6 by 6, 6 by 12 patterns that if a customer wants that movement, wants that pattern, is an option. And again, all those designs, all those patterns are available on our website. Here's an example of 16 by 24s on the ground. Okay, that's it. I really appreciate you guys. This was a long presentation, but I just want to thank you for your patience and your attention. If you want to follow me online, I'll be basically posting a bunch of like natural stone content, answering questions about limestone, marble, this entire presentation basically on there. You can follow me on Instagram, and you can also follow us on our business page, where we'll be doing more like project features. If we have collaborations with you guys, with residential properties, drone photography, anything and everything, we'll have that as well. So you can get in contact with me there. I unprofessionally left my business cards at my work, so that is really like a great place to get in contact with me. You had a question?
Yes, stupid. What does A&S stand for?
A&S. A&S, that's a great question. It's a hard name to pronounce. So A&S Mermer is our business name. Mermer in Turkish means marble. Mermer in Turkish, like that marble, just like travertine is synonymous with natural stone. In Turkey, mermer is synonymous with natural stone. So a lot of companies that work in the natural stone industry call themselves mermer businesses. A&S stands for Anatolia Natural Stone, and Anatolia is the land of Turkey. It's the old name, Anadolu or Anatolia. And so that's the root. It's a Turkish, like baked in the name, it's Turkish natural stone. Mm-hmm.
Very good. So, go ahead, John. Just 2 quick ones. So we can get the deck online? Your slide
Yeah, I shared the deck with Amber, so you guys can download it. In all honesty, I told you guys a lot of information. There's a lot of underlayer information. We didn't talk about, for example, saltwater pools and the effect that salt has on pools and why it does have the effect. So a lot of the intricate details and content, I've yet to create a detailed list. And I want to provide a simple packet. So this is the first fruits of that. I want to just give you the information. But like I said, I'm working on easier consumable information and content so that you guys can answer those questions. And if there are specific questions that keep on coming up, we can make a flyer around it for the homeowners. The second question.
Penetrating sealer, water-based or oil-based?
That's a great question. There are 2 types of sealers that exist in the market. One is oil-based, one is water-based. We bring in both. Water-based is nice because it's quote-unquote more sustainable. When oils are mixed in with soil or different, it just doesn't mix well with water. So it stays in the environment for a little while longer. The benefit to oil is hydrophobic. And so it has a better strength against those types of liquids and penetration. So it's technically a better option. It's more protective, but it has a negative environmental consequence. And so that's why we bring in water-based sealer for people who are concerned about that.
And is the oil-based have a lower friction coefficient? Like, is it slipperier than the
Sure.
water-based?
Not from, so there are different manufacturers of sealants. It's been around for a long time. And so the chemical formulations of those different manufacturers, some of which will leave that residue tactile feeling, oil-based will have a deeper tactile feeling. There are, the ones that we bring in don't leave film. Some sealers can leave a film or have like a slight like sheen. Ours doesn't do that. But yeah, in short, oil-based does have a little bit more tactile sense to it.
So slightly slipperier?
Not slippery, it just, so because it'll form into the stone, it's actually gonna make it a little bit more textured. So less slippery. The water-based will almost not be noticeable. It'll just kind of be more neutral. The oil-based can add an extra little layer, a non-noticeable layer that will have some texture to it. But the sealer, like the companies that do this, they will seal it and then they'll do a soft finish on top to even it out. Make sure that the stone is protected to the utmost. Is there any other main questions that I didn't answer for you guys that's pressing? I know I went through a lot of information today. I really appreciate you guys' patience. So if there is something that you had in mind that you wanted to answer for, I can answer that question for you.
I just wanted to know about salt.
Salt. Okay, so salt's gonna damage everything. It's not a travertine problem or a marble problem. It's the physical properties of salt. So basically, in water, it's soluble. It's kind of floating around. When the stone gets wet and then dries, salt will become a crystal. And so when it becomes a crystal, just like when water freezes, it expands, salt expands. And because stone is absorbent, it basically will absorb those salt molecules as a soluble form. And when it dries and expands inside the stone, there's flaking and chipping that happens. The more dense the stone, the less likely the stones to absorb water, therefore salts, less likely to chip for the salt pools. So basically, the denser the product, the better for salt pools. It's still gonna it's still gonna impact. The less dense absorbs more salt, more flaking. Same thing with freeze thaw. So that same concept, if something is always contracting and expanding, contracting and expanding, contracting and expanding, there will be erosion. Our products we don't see the freeze thaw in Arizona, but that's the answer to the salt.
Since marble is most dense, it would be the least affected by the salt.
Correct.
Does sealant though mitigate it?
Sealant does mitigate it.
Religiously seal it once a year.
Yeah.
Have salt, then
You basically are creating a layer where the water can't get in, and therefore the salt doesn't dry in the stone. It dries on top of the stone, and it's just washing it off and wiping it. Yeah, that's there are active studies on specific stones and sealants that the Natural Stone Institute is working on to solve this problem. Different types of salt, different levels of salt. That's an industry-wide problem. That's the million-dollar question. In short, more dense, safer it is with salt.
Very good. So, first and foremost, thank you so much for the effort and energy.
Thank you.
Presentation. Very good. Very informative. So, just let me ask you a question. If we could educate and empower the consumer the way Darren just did us, do you think that would help separate Shasta and why consumers should go with Shasta to install a stone deck? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Yes. So it's up to us to do that. But here's what I would recommend and would love to do. So Joe, John, Amber, if Darren would be so kind, we need to get Darren to our videography department immediately, and then do like whatever 5, 6, 8 topics of what you kind of went through here. So we're doing a lot of video to consumers. So he could do it empowerment and educational, here's what we do, here's why we do it.
Boom.
And then, but we have to also be Shasta Construction. If there are different products that we're gonna install differently, sands, whatever that is, that's up for Shasta and you to determine. But putting that on video, and every time someone wants a stone deck,
Yep.
if they're not getting these 5 or whatever videos, we're silly. But if we did send them the 5 videos and they just watch 1 or 2, I'm guessing, because I think this is great, the odds of us winning and out edging the competition is going to be that much greater. So we'll figure out if you're open to do
Absolutely.
some videos for us, because we're doing a lot of video now.
Yeah, I would. That's why I'm recording today. I have these conversations every day.
Because we won't remember it.
We won't remember it. So
To be a professional messenger.
send a link.
Let you
Watch
be
the video.
Professional message.
I would absolutely love that.
Yeah.
That is my intention. So that's right in line with my work, and we can definitely create the Shasta experience and walk alongside you guys to make it
That'd be great.
your guys' brand and make it easy for you guys too.
Yeah,
So
if you
I'm
send
on
it-
board.
If you send it before the appointment, it's gonna be a lot more effective than trying to do this in an appointment.
Absolutely, and they can do it on their own time.
For a sales appointment, but ahead of time, perfect, then they can write down their questions, which will be far fewer when you go to meet them.
Absolutely. So I would.
Good stuff.
We can work on that. Whoever I need to collaborate with on that department, I'm working on it. I'm also working on my own personal stuff, which includes a Stone of the Week feature. So this is in line. This will help educate the consumer. The sooner you put Shasta's name on it, the easier it is for
Are we
the
selling
consumer.
all 3? Are we selling travertine, limestone, and marble?
not at the
Or-
moment.
So
You have-
we're having this before we actually have it all in place and pricing.
So these are the 6 colors that
It
you
all
were.
has to be coordinated.
We do have the one.
We gotta make it sure it's all.
Oh,
whatever's
Oahu?
important, but-
Yeah.
Are you selling it? Yeah, you are selling a little bit of it. That's right.
But we have marble and limestone already in our pricing. Set.
It's basically the same price.
Oh,
Limestone is comparable in price points to marble. It's an exotic stone. So yeah,
Do we have that in our pricing?
It's
What I'm
in a
asking is,
promotion
do we
right
have
now.
anything besides travertine in our pricing?
Right now, it's just promotion,
promotion.
so it does need
Promotion to
to
get
separate
upgraded.
out.
Okay, so you get it for the same price as travertine
Yeah.
right now?
That's what we're doing now.
Okay.
But behind the scenes, we
Just
all
trying to
gotta,
understand.
Well, it makes sense now. Would
That's
you
great.
say that, just from what you were saying earlier, and maybe you said this and I missed it.
I said a lot, so I get that, bro.
No, so, would Mexican travertine be a lower cost point or lower price point than a Turkish one?
It's a little bit of a more complicated question than that because the cost of Mexican has less transportation cost. The material cost itself, when we buy it from Mexico, is higher.
Oh, okay.
So it equals out. The unspoken truth, though, is Mexican travertine has an unbaked cost in that it will cost the homeowner in the future. Not if, it will cost the homeowner. They're gonna have to replace that product sooner than a product that's more dense. That isn't to say that Mexican travertines can't be dense, because there are beautiful Mexican travertines that are denser than some others. Turkish travertine, by and large, across the board, is a more dense stone. And so
And that's because of the elevation? you said?
elevation is a huge factor. And then there's cold travertines and warm travertines, the different chemical processes that go on back 100 million years ago, whatever, that make a difference. But elevation is a big point too.
Perfect. Yeah, because we get asked a lot, when we meet people, they go, well, they can do travertine at this dollar per square.
Correct.
And I know there's behind the scenes stuff with that, but just having the education of what are they installing? Is it travertine? Is it?
Yeah.
that's where these videos
Yeah.
are gonna be the bombs to educate the
Well,
consumers.
and because before this, I thought it was it's the stone. It's just a matter of where it's coming from. And so I think homeowners even are like, so what? It's marble.
Yeah, it's commodity. There's no differentiation.
Yeah. So to help.
Yeah,
decipher that.
absolutely. And we can come up with pictures and evidence to show, same travertine, Mexican and Turkish 2 years ago, Look at the amount of erosion that's happened. It's just educating the customer.
Yeah.
And the thing is, with Mexican stone, like I could bring, I don't think you guys have any, you can feel it. You can take a stone, like between the limestone products and the marble, you can hold the two pieces in your hand, and one is substantially less in terms of weight, and that's just density. That's just the amount of material that's in there. Mexican travertine, by and large, you put it next to Turkish travertine, it'll weigh less. You show them, hey, it weighs less, more stuff gets in it, more erosion. You feel it. I don't need to convince you anything. Like, you can feel the difference.
Is there a lifespan?
Lifespan is thousands of years. I mean, Ephesus and Topkapi.
Put it down.
With residential applications, as long as the consumer wants the homeowner wants that material in their backyard, it'll stay there. And it'll change when the real estate agent or flipper comes in house. I don't want that stone anymore. I'll rip it up. But if the consumer keeps it and it's a high quality product, not pitted, dense like this, 10, 20 years, no issue.
Good, cool.
Awesome. So we'll work on more evergreen content with you guys. And if you ever do guys need a question or have a concern,